Make a motion to open the meeting.
Second. Move and second to open the meeting. All in favor? Vote. Carl?
Have you guys looked them, the warrants over?
Yeah. We, let's see, we got an expense one, which is payroll.
Ryan, did Jana Smith talk to you today?
Jana?
I told her that
Pretty straightforward.
she heard that this meeting was gonna be,
Make a motion that we approve the following warrants. Warrant 63 in the amount of $18,614.39.
How she can get that.
Warrant 64 in the amount of $40,789.69. Warrant 65 in the amount of $16,089.49. And warrant 66 in the amount of $50,108.37.
I second it.
Move and second to approve warrants 63, 64, 65, and 66 as presented. All in favor? Vote. All right, now, let's look at our minutes. Can we do them? Now, I'm here, and Steve's here, and Craig's here. Steve's not here. Carl.
Charlie.
All right.
Just call him Steve. I was wondering why there was snickering in the crowd.
Who's the beard?
Make a motion to approve the minutes of the regular council meeting of January 11th as written.
Second.
Move and second to approve our minutes of our regular council meeting of January 11th, 2021. All in favor? That's a vote. Under old business, Chris, you want to get us up to speed on the Main Street
Sure,
project bid?
we had the bid opening last week, and we had 4 bids. Eaton Paving and Excavation out of Deer Isle, Northeast Paving out of Bangor, Donovan Construction out of Crawford, and Sargent Construction out of Stillwater. They all, bid on the same set of plans. If you notice that the total bid by Eaton Paving and Excavation out of Deer Isle is the cheapest by a significant amount. $1,310,565. I think Annalise feels that they, at this point, are definitely in the game. They're giving us numbers that we would have seen probably last year or the year before, which is, that's fine. But she feels she's had them do some work for her down in Deer Isle, but I think she feels pretty confident that they do a good job. They haven't gotten cold feet yet either after seeing the other bids.
So, I would have to ask.
$1 million difference there?
Well, you got to remember too, is last year when she had figured this job originally, she was looking at it would probably cost $1.3 million.
Yeah.
Okay, and then she saw some of the prices coming in the southern part of the state and said it might go up to 1.5, maybe even 1.6. Then it came in at what, 3.4 or 3.5?
I thought it was 3.5.
3.5 million from Northeast last year. So then she sent it back out to Northeast and said, refigure this. And they came back in, I think, at 2.5. And notice they've come in this year at 2.2.
I will say Sergeant Corp has a considerable amount of work coming forward this summer, and not in our town, obviously. I'm guessing, based on what Donovan did for the city of Callis, that he has probably a leg in on the sewer work that's coming up in Callis. Northeast is the one I don't really understand, but again, 3.5 now down to 2.2. I know they base their per ton on fuel. Last year was like $526 a ton or something along those lines, which was way out of whack. I don't know anything about Eaton paving and excavation. Jamie, can you shed any light on this? Have you had a conversation with Annalise?
I have had a conversation with Annalise, and she has used them for work at the treatment plant in Stonington. She said they're very professional, very polite, they've got newer equipment. And I said that if we were gonna take them on, that I would want Annalise to have an inspector here, but only for the important stuff. I don't wanna pay somebody to be here 40 hours a week while they're ripping up granite curbing. I mean, any schmuck to do that, so. But anything that's plan related that they're gonna have in the right spot, or elevations and stuff like that, I wanna have somebody down here. Annalise did give us a quote of approximately $90-something thousand for the inspector.
Which I'm assuming under Northeast and Sargent, they would have their inspectors in their bids anyways, is what I'm guessing.
Well, no, not necessarily, because there'd be, Annalise works for us, and we want kind of our inspectors to kind of keep everybody in line. I think it probably would have been that cost on top of whatever their quotes were too, just like it would be with the sewer jobs we've done in the past. But she wasn't offended by me saying that. She said that it works out good for her, that she could have, inspectors somewhere else instead of living here for 6 months. And like I said, I don't wanna pay somebody, to do something that anybody could do, or, it isn't like I don't watch them or am close by, but I just can't be there 8 or 10 hours a day while they're doing important stuff. And they got the same plans, they've gotta go by the plans, they've gotta do it, and
If you look at page 2, you can see where she's got the budget in there of $90,000 for inspection expenses and $20,000 for the plan monthly meetings and project administration. So we're looking at a total budget of $1,492,565.
Which gets us back to where we wanted to be, didn't it, to begin
Yeah.
with. Now, obviously, with any of these bids, there's performance bonds that have to be taken out on them. So I
So
don't.
have you worked with Eaton?
I have not,
No.
I have not.
I talked to County Concrete. I said, hey, how come you guys aren't interested? And they said, well, I said, well, these are some of the companies that are interested. And he said, Eaton. I said, you get along good with them? He said, well, to tell you the truth, no, my boss and them don't get along at all. Said they do good work. He goes, if it's on the spec, they're gonna do it. If it's not on the spec, don't expect any, extras or freebies. He goes, but if it's on, you get what you ask for from them, and they do good work, so.
Well,
But we've been playing this game long enough, and we've had Annalise long enough that,
She would have rejected that.
I mean, I've gone through the plans a dozen times, I went through the bid specs, she's got the Oktoberfest in the plans, I mean, it's just every little thing that we could think of, and you've got the elevations, and you've got every piece of pipe and driveways, and everything is in the plans. If they follow the plans, then we'll get the results that we want.
if Annalise is comfortable with it, so am I. So, if, in the motion, the possible motion, are you looking at the total bid price or the base bid price?
The total bid price.
Okay.
So, can I ask, what are the concrete pads for the bleachers? Is that down at the Little League?
At the high school
High school
field,
field.
because of the sidewalk, the new sidewalk they're putting in, they've got to move the bleachers to get the 5-foot wide sidewalks along that side of the road. There's no sidewalk there now, but there's gonna be,
We're putting a sidewalk on that side of the road?
yes,
So we're gonna have a sidewalk on both sides?
yes.
It'll be a fancy street.
That's the only block that doesn't have sidewalk right now, is by the field. You've got it coming down over Main
Where are
Street
they
right
gonna
from
put-
Route 1. And then you've got it picking back up at Ralph Doerr's old house, going all the way to the other side of the mill office building.
where are they gonna move the concrete? If you put 5 feet of sidewalk in, how are you gonna fit?
Not gonna happen.
I was gonna say, cause I mean, there's only,
Me and
2
Jamie
feet
met on
on the
this,
other-
what,
But be-
a month ago or something like
Yeah.
that. Jamie mentioned it to me and I went down there, and right now, it's, you know, them other ones, it's just gonna have to, they're gonna have to go someplace else, but the problem is even on that first base side where those dugouts are, it's not out enough to be able to get a section over there to put them. So basically, you're looking at not having another second section of bleachers there. Which, from my perspective, I don't see why it's an issue, because 3/4 of the time, let's be honest, you know, people are either bringing their camping chairs or whatever, but those bleachers can definitely be moved down to the Little League field and be used, because the bleachers that are down there right now, I don't even dare sit on them, or I think I'm gonna go through them.
so one set will still fit at the high
Correct.
school?
They've gotta move it, but it'll
Right, yeah.
fit,
Yeah.
yeah.
Worst case scenario, you could bring the foul line in, but I'd prefer not to at this point.
Yeah,
There.
I would not be in favor of moving the foul line.
So what do you mean?
Moving that whole
Moving
fence
the
for a
fence in
sidewalk
2
that
to
no
3
one's
feet.
gonna use.
I mean,
Oh.
right,
They don't use the
you,
ones
you
we
had a good strong 3 feet behind the bleachers. So now they're gonna move another 2 feet that way. So yeah, it's gonna be tight.
With all the ADA stuff, it's just, unfortunately, there's a lot of costs involved with that to do all the, I can't remember what they're called now, but so blind people can feel the knobs and stuff, all the drop
For
ramps
every
and stuff.
crosswalk, yeah.
And they gotta be 5 feet wide, and it's just a lot. It's probably one of the bigger parts of the project is what they're gonna do for the sidewalks. But if we all, because coming down Main Street, that's awful, and they've actually gotta widen the sidewalk going across the bridge. So they've gotta move the drain and everything. We're actually gonna fix the drains, and they're gonna be 12-inch pipes going down
Actually
through with a
clear 'em.
regular. They were only gonna be one side, and when we're down there and 2 feet of water and people going by there 45 miles an hour, I'd like to have those things work.
Yeah.
So I have to say that between Annalise and Jamie, they hit basically everything the entire length and went and you know, gamed each piece, and a lot of thought's gone into this.
We-
I just didn't know we were adding sidewalk like that, that's why I was confused on the
We
concrete
went
pads.
across, you know, we did every intersection, so every intersection is gonna be different depths of how far we work into them, because we gotta get the elevation right, so the water goes, so we don't have the credit union car wash corner anymore, and we'll have the elevation right, and by the library, we went far enough to cover that manhole that we've had issues with, and, like First Avenue and stuff to include those catch basins on the corner, and just to get the elevations right, so everything drains right, and, there's like 22 or 23 manholes they're gonna replace through this project. And it's gonna be all concrete curbing, right from Route 1 down. There's gonna be a new sidewalk from the library all the way down to Glen Field, so the kids can walk and stay out of the road, you know, we can get to. But none of the work is really hard work. I mean, if this is a company that's been in business for a while and they've got
Right.
the basic knowledge, if I had the time, the money, and the manpower, we could do it. We just don't have that kind of.
So,
Make-
motion you're gonna include for total bid, correct?
Yep. Make a motion, we accept the bid from Eaton Paving in the amount of $1,310,565 to construct the Main Street Road project.
Is it, it's gonna be the
1.5 with the,
1492, the total project, should we do that one? With the contingency and inspection, all that?
I would think that's what we'd want to commit to, correct?
Well, all right, the bid from Eaton, you know, I think, make a separate motion that you commit to the 1.4, what is it,
Alright, so you could do it this way, accepting the bid for Eaton, whatever they're called, for $1,310,000, and then it is additional, whatever that works out to, that's 125,000,
110.
110.
110, but that additional 110 for.
So do all of our separate,
Yeah.
the,
You You want that as a separate motion?
I think we'd be fine putting it as long as you state what you put, that Eaton is on the hook for $1,310,000.
Yep.
And then the additional $110,000 for,
And Eaton's actually 1316. But the total bid up top says 1310, but then it's down bottom, it says, they were 6,000 off on the concrete pads, which brings the total bid to 1316565. I don't know why they wouldn't have just added that up top there, but.
Then let's just start this one over again. Make a motion, we accept the bid from Eaton Paving, the amount of $1,316,565, including another $110,000 for contingency and inspection administration.
Second.
the move and second to accept the bid from Eaton Paving and Excavation in the amount of $1,316,565 and an additional $110,000 for administration and inspection fees. All in favor? All right. You just spent some money tonight, boys.
That was one of the reasons we put it out so early, hoping this would happen, just hoping we could beat the construction rush, which I think is what happened last year. We were late enough that there was enough jobs lined up that
Right.
they didn't care if they got it or not.
Exactly. All right, so we got a couple of sewer abatements here. Actually, 5 of them. Pool fill and 4 water shots.
All separate, or?
You're gonna have to do them all separate.
Make a motion that we approve, sewer abatement on account number 623, due to water shut off in the amount of $50.96.
Second that?
And second to do a sewer abatement in the amount of $50.96 on account 623. All in favor? So vote.
Make a motion, we approve sewer abatement on account 608, for $21.75.
Second?
Moving second to do a sewer abatement of, on account 608 in the amount of $21.75. All in favor? That's a vote.
Motion on a sewer abatement 820, in the amount of $120.
Second that?
Moving second to abate $120 from account 820. All in favor? That's a vote.
845, sewer abatement, $60.
Second that?
Moving second to abate sewer account 845 in the amount of $60. All in favor? That's a vote.
And account 467, in the amount of $87.
Second that?
And move on a sewer abatement on account 467 in the amount of $87. All in favor? That's a vote. All right, I'll sign these and I'll send them along. Okay. All right. Chris, you have an update for Baileyville Utility District? For
Yeah, they'd like to see a new counselor appointed. They have one that has not been to hardly any meetings.
A trustee, you mean?
Trustee, correct. And they would like to replace that person with Frank Crosby.
Don't we have to actually put this in the paper that they have a trustee opening?
I don't know.
Because we appoint them,
Right.
and I think we've always gone along with name suggestions, like, and that's how a couple of these got on there, correct?
So I always thought that it was like paper.
Yeah.
All right,
In my
so you
mind,
want me to put
always
it in
went
the
through
paper?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with Frank doing it, I think
Alright.
that's great, if you have a volunteer that wants to do it, but I just think that if we don't do it the correct way, then
Okay. I will put it in the paper then.
All right, so up next is, I'm assuming we're gonna be talking to Ryan. So, you have the floor.
It was in your packet too.
Yeah, so there's a couple things in your packet. The first one kind of explains exactly what I'm looking to do. Number two is a diagram. Don't mind my messy hem scratch there, but, so as you guys know, a couple of years ago, obviously you guys got the field back, now Counselor's Field. So one of my big projects when I interviewed and knew coming in is we need to, make something happen with that field. So obviously the biggest project that comes with that field is the soccer field portion, but that's something that's gonna have to get touched at a later date because that's a lot more involved than that. So the last month or so, I've spent time with different people getting quotes done on these, figuring out best pricing, best things that we can do. So I had Sports Fields Company come down who does all of our maintenance during the summer, springtime to get our fields up to date. And basically the biggest issue that we have right now at that field is the way that the field structure is set. The in-play lines still include the parking lot that's on the right field side and the marsh that's on the left field side. So the field needs to basically be pushed ahead about 25 feet towards pitcher's mound, second base, what have you, in order to enclose that field in. The field mix that's on that right now is basically like a crushed gravel, so that's obviously not very ideal as far as the field goes, for sliding and safety purposes. So sports fields would come in, create a skinned infield, which is basically just a dirt infield, and it would be professionally graded, done, reset, the old stuff taken out, new put in, and it would be flexible enough, if you see in your diagram, that it would host 60 and 70 foot anchored bases, which allows for Little League Baseball, Little League Softball, Junior High Baseball, Junior High Softball, and adult sports. With that included would be, in the fencing, is 2 different sections of fencing that is portable, so it's plugs that go on the ground, and then it's just like a portable fence that you can roll up or whatever, still looks good. 2 different ones at 200 feet for all the youth sports, which is guidelines are met there as far as distance goes, and then at 300 down to 240 due to the short porch, so to speak, and right for that. And then the dugouts, so right now it's set so there's 2 concrete pads where the old 2 dugouts were. Concept that I use is where the backstop's going to be moving forward. The new one, it would be basically a connected dugout that wraps the entire backstop, and there's a divider in between for the 2 separate dugouts, and then an equipment storage / concession stand, like a 12 by 12 building that comes off the back of that. As Pepsi, as you see up top there, pretty close with them about getting a sponsorship and a donation for a scoreboard too from them. Only adjustment with that would be having to sell Pepsi products out the field. And that would be included in what I would use at the Glidden Field Association. That's for another day, but my dad's still technically the president of that, but that's trying to get that revamped and booted up too. But obviously this is a field that needs some love. Know we're gonna have to spend some money at some point, and price wise, I personally believe it's a pretty good price point to get us started and give us another field.
Any questions for Ryan regarding his idea on this plan? Now, the one thing that we need to keep in mind is, and we just spent $1.4 million on a project, but keeping in mind where that money came from. And we're trying to hold the line. We know we purchased this field with ideas of it being in step phases, getting to being the field. So, Chris, you're gonna have to do some creativity to try to figure out where you're gonna come up with arguments, say $35,000 to put something like this together that's not gonna affect the budget line.
The good news is too, is within the budget that I have now, the athletic field work hasn't been done for 3 years on any of our fields. Okay, we haven't had any work done. Problem is our fields are gonna continue to deteriorate if we don't get some work done. Good news is within the budget, there's a $15,000 athletic field maintenance budget line that hasn't been touched this year. So there's 15 grand that's sitting there that can at least help cut into that piece. I've sat down, gone through my budget, left, right, center, tried to figure out the best way to do this. Good news is with this money piece, Mr. Rogers in the school account gets a set amount each year that he's able to put towards athletic field maintenance. He has already registered $10,000 to be able to go towards this project. 5,000 from this year's budget, 5,000 from next year's budget.
Start with that next time.
Do we, how do I say this nice?
Gotta keep them on their toes, you know. Gotta make them think back
Do
and
we
forward.
have it in writing or anything that the school is going to earmark that $10,000? Because I mean,
Fell in that mousetrap years ago.
and I'm not saying that they won't,
Yep.
you know, I'm hoping they will, right? But I hate for us to not be in possession of that money, think they're going to do it, and then come to find out they had other plans
Yeah,
for.
so I don't have anything in writing, but basically my talk with John is they budget him $5,000 a year, which basically I get, well, I say the rec department gets all this work done to the fields and stuff like that, and that $5,000 goes to us. So each year the school has been giving $5,000 to the budget to be able to go on these fields.
And they have been giving us half of what's been sent for field.
Really?
Yeah.
And John did.
For a while there, we stopped because they weren't.
Right, and John did apply for more money too, so like they're obviously having their negotiations coming up soon too. And he applied for, instead of $5,000 for this coming year, he applied for 10. So then that way there, he could basically put 10,000 towards us, and then the $5,000 for the maintenance that typically gets done. Like I said, obviously I don't have that in writing, but basically the discussions that I've had with them, you know, they're gonna benefit from it too, from practices and games, being able to give us a third field option.
So you're asking for an additional 10K roughly, because it sounds like this is about 25.
Basically, yeah, the total project's gonna be, you know, like Tim said, basically $35,000. You know, I got 15 in there right now that hasn't been touched, and if I use that on this side, you know, that's obviously me being cautious with all the other money that I need to spend. I still have that, another $9,000 line for a special project that hasn't been used, but I've also compared the last 3 years' budgets compared to what I have now, and there's actually, you know, obviously we wanna have some money left over, but there's a good amount of money in there to play with, cause it really hasn't been used.
I was gonna say, did Mike ever have a line for, like a reserve line for carrying?
That's what I was just gonna ask
Funds over.
Marilyn, you know, is the reserve account for the rec department depleted, gone?
I
Do you
plan
know
to-
if there's any monies
I don't know if it's
available
a
through
Fed,
the state
yeah.
or anything, Chris?
Right now, no, but the school's been coming up with money like, they're what, about 550,000, 600,000?
Yeah, that's all COVID relief money.
Yeah, and they've been spending it on playgrounds and everything else,
And
so.
you have to justify every dollar you spend.
Hmm?
You have to justify where the money goes. You have to pass the straight face test.
Yeah.
And I know that from some other rec directors that I've talked to, that's what they've done, is some of that COVID relief money that the schools have gotten, they've given some of that money to the rec department where they kinda share, you know, facilities and stuff like that. You know, like I said, didn't really get into that piece of it because, I mean, that's separate entity.
Yeah,
but-
I think too, with the way that recreation has been basically shut down since, you know, for almost a year now, we may be able to pull a fair amount of that, but, it's probably time to start coming up with for the future, a
Correct.
reserve account for the rec department.
Right.
Your hands are kinda tied on most of these, I know, in terms of fencing, Superior's about the only person that'll come up here for any sort of fencing, it seems.
Next company was Allen's Farm Company, it was over double.
And I don't even know who that is, so that clears that up. Sports fields, portable fencing probably. Have you checked with anyone else on the dugout and stuff?
Checked with 4 or 5 different people around here and everybody's either too tied up or they had no interest.
So that includes concrete pads, lumber, labor for that building,
Yes.
13,000? I'm not in the construction business, I just.
It seems,
That seems like a,
well, no, it seems low to me, cause I
That's-
actually have a little star beside that.
well, yeah, cause I mean,
How big's the building?
the
12
price-
by 12,
that's for the concession building, but the dugouts,
8x6 each of them.
Well, no, it's so, it's,
24 feet.
yeah, so the dugout itself is, it's actually, it's like one big thing, so
with
it's
a
like,
divider in the middle.
basically it's one big dugout with a divider in the middle. So for the dugouts themselves, I think it was like, I had to look, like $7,600 for the dugouts, and then it was, or 7,800, and then the rest was for the 12 by 12, cause I obviously got a window in that one and an exterior door, and what have you for the concession piece of it. I mean, obviously it won't be used for much storage on there, but, I mean, in my opinion, if it helps get a field down there and we have to take out the storage building piece of it just to save us, you know, $7,000 or whatever, I'm personally okay with that, because we at least need to get something down there. You know, it's just, it's,
Craig, you're in the construction business, does that seem
I
low?
hardly am in the construction business, but I will say that, say a
Maybe it is.
14 by 28 building setup was $8,000.
Then you factor in, I mean, that's a big concrete pad.
With no concrete,
Right.
just gravel, compacted with that building sitting on top, just an empty building.
Right, Jamie, you're in this side business of construction, what's your?
Honestly, it's just a little bit hard to tell from that drawing,
Right.
you know, I don't know how much you're gonna have walls filled in, is the whole front gonna be open, is
the whole
this-
front's wide open. Basically, he's gonna set it up, the sides and backs of the dugout, just up on cinders too, basically to allow so the water's not getting inside of it and everything else.
The one I built for the school that, for the council's field, it's a storage unit now, whatever, I think that was like $6,500, the labor was free, that was just for the materials to build it.
It just seems, that seems very low for what I see.
And this
from it.
is, this
Yeah,
thing's
yeah,
like 3 or
it's-
4 times the size of that.
Yeah, it was
And it's
2
many,
years ago.
and yours is years and years ago, so. I think on
I
that
mean, I'm fine
portion,
if it's
Ryan,
gonna
I
be
think
that
I'd get a
fast.
little bit more clarification
Yep.
on that.
I'd be very specific about exactly what you wanted for all of it.
So what I had him do was, it's basically a replica of what the Callis softball field has.
Mhm.
So I had him go down to Callis and tape it out, and I said, this is exactly what I want down here. So he was able to at least go out and put his eyes on it,
Yep.
tape it off, and do whatever. So basically, the number that he came back with me is, so, I mean, no, I have no problem looking into that piece more. I guess basically at the end of the day, even if it's one of those things where, you know, each year I go back, $15,000 has really been budgeted every single year for athletic field maintenance, and it's not been touched this year. So basically, I look at it this way, alright, even if I only get $3,400 from the school, I've had 15 grand budgeted each year, and in that money, he typically uses that 5,000 that goes towards the athletic field or whatever, on the other end with the capital outlay that he has. Basically, I could pay for it with my budget between this year and next year if that $15,000 line is still gonna be there next year, which it has every single year, so basically that was me figuring that it's not gonna move.
Right, which you'll have your day with
Correct.
Chris, and you two will try to figure out how to keep that in there. You know, it's unfortunate that the reserve account, you know, didn't get rolled over to him, and it's have some in there, but, you know, hindsight's 20/20. But I think potentially in your budget, you're gonna have enough money saved out that we can roll it into a reserve at the end of this year. Cause I mean, let's face it, we said yes to this, when do you anticipate this being done?
So they spend
Basically, the reason why I have to come to you now to ask you, especially with the infield portion of this, they have to know now, are we coming up there on such and such a date? Because they have so much backed up, because a lot of people didn't do anything this past season. So even if you guys basically said, gave me the okay to have sports fields come up and at least get the infield work completed, I mean, in my opinion, that's a win to at least get started in that realm, and I have that money budgeted.
Well, I think,
Go ahead.
I think your best bet is to split it into phases and basically, I mean, think about it, you're gonna have a new budget, you know what, a month after your plan, so if you had them come up and do the infield, you know, I mean, even, you know, if you're planning to have 25,000, you could have most of this done and hold off on the backstop, put that into next year's budget when you come in, and then in June, you
Well, the
can
good
have
news
that
is
started
too,
on.
is that in that budget, I have a $5,000 line for fencing too, that I didn't include into this because there's
I
there's so
think
much
within
other-
your budget this year, you're going to have enough to do the sports field, the Superior fence, and the portable fencing.
Right.
Where I think you're gonna run into issues is the actual price of what you wanna do regarding this dugout,
Yeah.
is what I think. But I think if you get with Chris, you can figure out where your budget's gonna lay out for the most part
Mhm.
right now.
And it could just be me, Ryan, but one thing, since I've gotten on the council, we don't look for ways to spend money. But if we're gonna spend money, we want it done right, we don't wanna come back and say, man, we should've done, so if the storage, like, I'm not about, okay, let's get rid of the storage and concession building. Like, if that's, to me, honestly, I'd like to see, get rid of storage and just have it be concession and actually like, have a bathroom or something there, because when people have to use the bathroom, they go into the woods. You know that from soccer. There's been a lot of stuff put in that woods
How
that
far
shouldn't
to
be
a
in
sewer
there.
line?
I'd have to look, but it's,
There's one right in the middle of
just
the field,
pipe
isn't there?
and elevation.
So I think, get with Chris, figure out where your budget's gonna lay out, and then I do a little bit more homework on this dugout.
Yep.
Just, it just seems really low.
That's the only other comment I'd make. Whatever money you're counting on from the school side, I'm gonna assume that John has a lot of that gonna be tied up, cause he'll have to have sports field down there, doing what they do at the field, dragging it, aerating and doing all that stuff. Is he still is he gonna budget his money for that
So,
at the two other fields?
yeah, so basically, it's a whole realm of things, so I didn't include it in my proposal here, but that's basically already taken care of, because I've already been with sports fields to figure out all the line as to what that's gonna be. So basically, for sports fields to come here and take care of those two fields, which, when they come, they'll take care of this other field, and the maintenance will be included into it, in that price there. But for those two other fields, it's $5,000 for them to come up here, so I've already taken care of that, but yes, that money is budgeted for him, but the money that he's giving to me is access.
Yep.
Ryan, the other thing you might wanna look into, check with, is it Building Trades that does it? The Votech Building Trades, like, if you pay for lumber and stuff, they'll,
Yeah.
you know, that might be worth checking into.
Mhm.
Lumber's not cheap right now, that's why that 13 grand, I mean, for the price of lumber and concrete for that big of an area, I'm just, you know.
I'm not very, high on that end either. Basically, like I said, I went to 4 or 5 different people. He was really the only one that did it. He went down, taped it out. I took him down there one day, showed him exactly what I wanted, and that's what he came back with, so that's, obviously he was the only one that wanted it, but I have no issue revisiting that, so I guess basically what I'm taking from you guys is look at my budget, see what I can afford to do with Chris. If I can afford to do it, go ahead. Basically get the go ahead, is that what I'm feeling, or?
Yeah, I think what you need to do is figure out where your budget lays for this year. Figure out what you can actually do. And then from that point, you can figure out what you're gonna have to put into next year's budget to either complete this project, or you may find you've found enough money to complete the entire project. I mean, I think what Carl is stating is that we do support something like this, but I'm with you, I don't wanna see it half-assed done and then, 5 years from now, well, we should have done that, or now we're gonna invest another, $15,000 to put up a storage building, so.
I think you guys know for a fact the way that the first thing that I said to Carl is appearance is everything in this town, and, it's not me being ignorant about it, but these fields need this thing's done the right way. It needs to get done, so,
You know, just the work we did down on that one a few years ago, 2 now? That made a huge difference on Main Street, just the, extending the fence, Jamie doing the rock wall, and having it so that the dugout doesn't look like it was gonna slide down the hill.
and there will be grass back there.
Replacing the brown fencing.
Kinda like that tetanus feel of the other one, but whatever.
Vintage patina.
All right, So we'll move on, to the mowing contract, and in there, we have a Parks and Recreation mowing proposal. I see right out of the gun, you look like you're saving money, but there's a couple of things that I see that stick out automatically. You don't have the Tamro field on this list, which Mike used to mow. I don't recall the Main Street Park being under, the mowing contract. I believe Mike Boyce did that. I can't answer the junction, I think that one is being done by the contract.
I think so.
And the Fourth Avenue complex is being done by the contract. So there's no way possible you're mowing all these lots in 10 to 12 hours.
So I have the contract right here, and the contract shows Baileyville Town Office, Woodland Junction, Glidden Field, Main Street, and then the,
I think what they're saying there is Glidden Field, Main Street, because I know he does not mow the park on Main Street, I know that, and I know he does not mow the Tamro
Tamro
field.
did that, and I know.
Right.
When I first worked for the rec department, I was the one that mowed it, and I know that it took me about 12 hours to do all of those fields.
Counselor's Field too?
What's that?
Counselor's Field too?
Yep, yeah, I did Spinnacle Club field too, well, Spinnacle Club back then.
I'm not saying you didn't, but I'm telling you, that's a lot of mowing, lot to lot, that you're expecting someone, that you're gonna find somebody that wants to do this for $13 an hour for 10 to 12 hours a week.
Well, in the part-time budget, isn't that why we've hired Dakota Edgerly?
100% we want that, Ryan, that's not what I'm trying to say is, you need to have that person that's gonna be available for the 10 to 12 hours a week. And I'm not saying maybe Dakota Edgerly's your person of interest to do this. I'm not saying he's not capable of doing it. But for me, if you're only working 10 to 12 hours a week, I'm gonna find something that pays me a little bit better than $13 an hour and more hours.
Well, so when I put this together, I'm talking just the mowing wise, it's going to be 10 to 12 hours. So we're talking about mowing contract here. We're not talking about a part-time worker that's working 30-some hours a week. This person I hire is not just gonna be doing 10 to 12 hours of this.
So you
This-
expect him to do more.
He would be the maintenance guy, so to speak. So it'd be a kid that's getting 30, 32, 40 hours a week, whatever it is that we work it out.
Okay.
I'm just basing this off in the mowing itself. Because right now we're paying out $12,000 for a mowing contract and paying out $300 a week for just the Counselor's Field itself.
Right, well, we took that back on, at the time, Mike really, I gotta believe Mike Boyce spent more than 10 or 12 hours on Tamro Field down there in the run of a week, quite honestly.
I will say that when Ryan and Damon were in school, Mike's mowing was very limited because Ryan did it, and then when he moved on, Damon took over. After that, it was very limited. Then Alex Morrison come along and did, a lot of the stuff for Mike. And, by that time we had entered a contract on all this other stuff, but, I remember Damon cruising around on the mower down Main Street all the time. I used to call him.
I'm more than for saving this type of money. I just don't want us to get under the assumption that, the initial cost obviously is your mower. That is what it is, and we know we need to buy one anyways because of the situation at the treatment plant. I personally think if we don't go with your proposal, that the treatment plant should get the new mower instead of the rec department, because there's a lot of lawn to mow down there. So, that's my personal take. If we're gonna go with a proposal like this, I'm gonna hold you to the fire that says that those fields look as good as they do right now. Because the person that's doing these fields and this town office does a fabulous job. And I'm not saying that you're not gonna do the same job, but I will tell you, the person that's in that contract does a pretty damn good job.
Yeah, I mean, hey, if you wanna keep him on and pay that kind of money, that's fine.
I'm
I
not
have no
saying
issue
I
with
wanna,
that.
I'm not saying I wanna keep them on, I'm more than willing to listen to save money. All I'm saying is I wanna see the same thing. We fought with the guy at the cemetery for years and years, and we finally got him to where I think he does a pretty good job, you know?
And I can say too, that if I didn't include it in this because, you know, I was a lawn care supervisor for 3 years. Okay, these John Deere tractors are the best thing that you can get, cat's ass. Now, the thing about it is they don't highly recommend with the new Tweel system, to put a bagging system on it. But you still can and it still works efficiently. So for an extra $3,500, you can put a bagging system on it. So then you're avoiding, like you're talking about, the clippings and access of that. That helps give it that cleaner look. No stripe kit or anything like that on it, because that's,
Well, I
you don't
mean,
need that.
I think back to when Public Works used to do this building, and because it always seems like you wanna get out and mow it, but you had a water break, and then it rained for 2 weeks, and then we mowed the lawn, and we got a windrow out here that looks like a small starting of a mountain. Then they have to come and pick it up, and so on and so forth. That's what I don't wanna see happen, is right now, when I look at the lawns that are being done for the town, they actually look very nice. And that's what I wanna keep if we go with a proposal like this.
And one of the reasons we started doing it, or the whole reason this all happened, was because you end up with department heads out running lawnmowers. And you've got people making $20, $25 an hour running lawnmowers, which you'll still end up doing because you're gonna have to start in May. Your part-time help might not start until the end of June, especially if they're coming out of school. And then they go back to school in September, and you still gotta mow for another 3 weeks, so you're back on it. And it's just, that was part of the problem, was you had me out there on a ride lawnmower. There's a lot more that we could be doing in our pay grade than mowing lawns, and that's kinda how it started.
Right.
And the money wasn't that much different at the time.
At the time.
Especially when you figure in new lawn mowers and things like that. It didn't cost you that much more to take it off your plate so that you could be doing something a little bit more
But
in your
now,
pay grade.
the contract has gone up substantially over the past 5, 6 years, however long it's been. But again, with buying new equipment, that means you have to start budgeting every year for reserves so that money's saved up, like when Jamie needs a dump truck, he has money. The same thing's gonna happen regardless. Whether we go with this or you need a lawnmower, we wanna make sure that we're not just $10,000 for a lawnmower every time something happens. Part of the other reason was, the equipment just wasn't being taken care of, and I think you would keep care of, the equipment. I think that was part of it. The other part was, seeing it run down Main Street. That just absolutely drives me furious when I see somebody driving a lawnmower, zipping around, when you have a trailer and you got a truck and you can get to these locations. It just blows my mind.
I think the other thing too, that, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that doesn't go into it too, like what is used to drag the infields at the baseball fields? What gets used for that right now?
He was using the lawn tractor last I know.
Yeah, I mean, he was using a lawn
So
truck.
was there so at this rate, with it not being used, there was no issues as far as, well, the water treatment plant's mowing the lawn right now, but I gotta drag the infield this morning, we never had any issues like that.
Not that I'm aware of.
I'm just wondering.
No, because Craig, on occasion, did Alex not use the school mower on occasion?
Yep.
Yeah, so if Alex needed to do it, because Alex Morris was the one that did it, he would use the school mower on occasion.
And it's the one used all the time.
Oh, is that the one that they always used to drag the field?
Right, because the zero
As far as I know.
turn.
Okay.
Right.
I know it kinda got to the point where the treatment plant just kept it, and then when they needed it done, Chris would have us get it and
I guess there's something wrong with it right now, because it's happened to be started with a screwdriver.
Yeah.
Yeah,
needs a
like
new
exactly
starter
wrong
and
with
solenoid,
it.
yeah.
I don't know, they got the best mechanic in town down there, so.
Yeah, I don't know. All I know is that it's being started with a screwdriver, so.
Well, again, but it shouldn't be getting started with a screwdriver, it should be taken and getting fixed.
Right.
I mean, I can't answer,
So is this something that we should have everybody here?
Yes.
Have all the
Yeah.
council here, and, because save money is a great idea. We've been very, very pleased with the guy who's got this contract, they do a really good job. But if, obviously, if we can save money, that's definitely something we need to look at. I mean, I would think we'd wanna at least entertain the idea.
Right. You know, and see where it plays out, you know. I just wanna make sure that you're comfortable with 10 to 12 hours. Honestly, I think it's gonna be more than that, but you've mowed them before. The initial investment's the biggest thing, and it's, you know, $10,000. And then it's budgeting from that point on is all it is. Right now, it has to go out to bid anyways for the upcoming year if we go with that proposal, you know, or decide to take it out. So that current bid may be $15,000 this year. We don't know, you know. So I think, I agree with Craig, let's have all the counselors here so we can really put together, if we're gonna spend this type of money as an initial investment. It's a lot of money. I get it, but again, I haven't seen the lawns look this well in years and years and years. And my biggest thing is having kids, and you know, a little bit different than when you were in school. I just don't see the worth ethic.
And that would be the only thing you'd have to think about in my mind is, well, we've talked about this over the past few years, when we've had people that have tried to fill in during the summertime. You spend more time babysitting than you do getting work out of anybody. And so that would be something you'd have to monitor if we went down this road, because maybe Dakota isn't there anymore and you have to try to find somebody else, because obviously, I don't know if you'd wanna be trying to take care of this, because you're gonna be busy enough with your regular director job. You'd wanna be having somebody do this, not you.
And that's why, you know, with what I proposed, it wouldn't be me doing it, cause I shouldn't
Yeah.
be sitting on the mower.
No.
I know there's gonna be times that I'm going to, and I know when I do it, it'll be fine, but that doesn't mean when somebody else is doing it, it will be.
Yeah.
I guess basically more or less it's the fact that, you know, a $12,000 number to me is like a wow thing. And I just personally feel like if it can be done right and properly the right way, that money can be used better in a different sense. That's just my opinion.
Can't disagree with you on it.
Yep.
Is that something that where it is running out, that we could actually put the bid out now for that?
Yes,
For, say,
we've done like with the cemetery, just said, yeah, okay.
Because at least
do
that
another
way
year, do it
you
another year.
cut dry, you're not guessing it's gonna be 8,000 next year, if it's gonna be 18,000 next year. That would probably help make everybody decide what they want to do.
Right. Cause, yeah, it's been quite a while since we've put that one out, and also the cemetery one, if he's, you know, we've been content with if he's gonna do it for the same amount, just rolling it and rolling it and rolling it.
So, I think Jamie brings up a valid point, why don't you get together, it's early enough in the year that you may find, that you get 3 or 4 bids that come in and one comes in at 8,000, but again, we need to look at that, why is it coming in at 8,000? You know, because there is.
Also get a bid where they price out each section they're doing, because it may be, you know, that keeping certain places, you know, mowed by a contractor be
Makes
worth
sense.
doing.
All right, so that's, again, Chris will handle that portion of it, then you guys will figure it out and bring it up at our
Once
next.
we get the bids back, we'll have to revisit this to see, right?
All right, so now we're gonna move on to the town manager's report.
Okay, broadband update. We're now approaching 100 connections in town, which is, okay, that's nice, but we really want to see at least 250 in the first year. One of the things that we're realizing is that we're having a tough time getting enough installations done in a timely period. He's got like 1.5 people down this area working to do installations. And the one full-timer is the least experienced. The guy that's down 2 to 3 days a week is much more experienced. He's coming down from Holton. That appears to be one of the big problems we have right now, is we just don't have enough installations being done to bring people online fast enough. Once they get on, you know, people are staying on, but the question is getting them on quick enough so that we see that money start to come in. We on our side of things, we see $25 a month come in per customer. So, okay, $25 per month, 100 customers, $2,500. You know, we need to be seeing a lot more than that. We need to be seeing probably something on the order of $6,500 to $7,500.
Right, and we don't have a lot of control over as far as the hookups, other than
Correct.
pressing them to do something different.
Correct.
But could the town of Baileyville, and I'm not talking about Callis, and I'm not talking about Alexander, but could we run our own special in this town? In other words, $59.95 a month. Could we potentially say, because that goes directly to Pioneer,
Correct.
could we utilize maybe a seller to get people to sign on to the service? In other words, 6 months at $49.95, and we pay the $10 to Pioneer. Because Pioneer isn't gonna change the price.
No.
But if we could get more people to sign on to this and convince them to sign on, because I think that's part of our issue, is the convincing part of it. And a lot of people still don't understand this, what the idea of streaming is to cable TV. Which, honestly, the streaming is better than cable TV, but, you know, I think this is that education part of it, where we do have an elderly population. We need to somehow figure out how we can convince people to swap to the service.
The only problem right now is, again, the rate of installations.
Well, I understand,
Yeah.
but you and I can't install these things. That's
No.
something that Bill Barnett and Tim McAfee are gonna have to figure out.
Yeah.
You know, I can't answer that.
And right now, that's the Achilles heel right now. They're not installing them quick enough.
But I gotta say, we haven't hooked up, I just haven't made the phone call yet. But since this project started, remember, for month after month after month, well, the guy's hurt. This went on for months.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, the problem is we need to get more people hooked up, and that's the problem, that's the root of our problem. I don't know how we pressure them to get somebody on here, but, I mean, it's been a year and a half getting these hookups done, we still have the same problem. It's
Right.
never changed. So how do we fix that?
That's one of the, you know, we were all sitting down trying to figure that out. We did have, well, in fact, Laurel's son was working for him. Laurel, who's, yeah. And like he said, you know, they give you a quick and dirty training, you know, over a couple of weeks, and then let you out on your own, and you're expected to solve every problem. You know, and if you had a major problem, then you know, call someone from up in Holton and say, what do I do now? This is why they went through a lot of these folks as they, you know, brought them in. And he's been relying on basically the folks he's brought down from Holton to do, you know, the hard stuff. Well, he just doesn't have enough bodies.
But how many are backed up in Woodland right now?
They are now at about 4.5 weeks out. So you might only have 5 to 10. Because they've
See,
done
that's
as little
where
as
I
one
think-
installation a day in some cases.
Right, but that's where I think, and you gotta keep in mind, we're not just talking Baileyville, we're talking Callis also.
Right.
So that's where, to me, we're not seeing the volume of people that want to sign up.
Right.
that's where I think where we've got to figure out what can we do to
Oh.
get these people to sign
The
up.
next thing is they're starting with the, Tim McAfee has a large credit left over from his initial work with,
Right.
and he's going to start advertising again, in the Callis Advertiser and other sources to get that out there. He wants to start moving this along. Unless he sends another body, I really don't see it moving along much quicker.
But is he not sending enough bodies because we don't have enough people signing up?
Not right now. The problem up to this point, and probably for several more, probably for a couple more months, is he just doesn't have enough bodies down here to do the installations. When you call and say, hey, I'd like an installation, and they give you a date 8 weeks out, it kind of makes you say, well, I'm
Sure.
not gonna deal with this. The other problem is everyone wants to get it so they don't have to worry about spectrum, not prorating or whatever. That's been another issue. We're trying to get more installers down here, and so that we see that. Now, they have gone down from 8 weeks to 6 weeks, and now they're pushing 4.5 to 5 weeks. So that's improving. But the question is, you really need to get down to less than 2 weeks. When someone
But
calls.
what's their answer to it, other than we need to hire another person?
He needs to get more bodies on the ground. And unfortunately, I don't think he's willing to make that investment.
Did you say they're getting one installation a day done? Is that what?
Some days as little as 1 installation a day. We did 5 this week. Well, that's great. They might do 14 in 1 week, but they do 5 in another week, and that's garbage.
But you gotta keep in mind here, that most houses here already have the cable in it, as far as spectrum. Most already have a telephone line.
Right.
This is a complete new cable that's coming into your house that has to be run. So trying to compare, when we originally put cable into all these homes, how long it took whoever it was at the time, probably Dale Wing, how long it was taking him to actually get these houses to where they're ready to connect. So that's really not the alarming part. I agree with
But it's
Chris.
just you gotta go 100 days and 100 people.
Right.
So you
That's what I'm saying.
takes you
I mean,
even if you get them lined up, it takes you 100 days to get 100 people.
Right.
Well,
That-
105.
I think
5-day weeks.
you're right about the bodies, and I just don't, but I guess from a business standpoint, that's how he makes his money.
Right.
So I don't get that mentality.
And that's what's bothering me, because, we could have every single person in Baileyville sign up for this, and that'd be great. So 1,400 days later,
3 years.
1,400 days later, and wait a minute, that's not counting the weekends, so you have to add that on.
Well,
So we'd be about 3.5, 4 years to get
You're
everybody hooked up.
probably looking, with Baileyville, you're probably looking at like 550 to 600 households. Right? And then you turn around and you look at, even if our goal is to get, I would like to see 300 people taking the service. Because 300 would turn a nice little profit for the town. But I would be very happy with 220 to 250 at this point. That would pay the payments in the future.
Well, I don't see why they don't get, he might be the only installer down here now, but I know one of them. The other one that installed mine's already gotten done and moved on to a different job. But I mean, if they've got one in this area, the way that those hookups work too is they might be at your house, and then their next call's out way the heck out in Callis somewhere, and then the next one, they've gotta come back to Woodland, like, it's ridiculous how and I get it, it's by order of who signed up, and you're just at the mercy of the operator saying, these are your jobs today, but, that pinging back and forth really doesn't help out.
You would think
You
they'd
get someone
stick to one
designated
town.
for each town. Like,
Right.
if you're only gonna have one, okay, hire one for Callis, hire one for Baileyville, like.
Right.
But let me ask you this, because I wasn't at that meeting, but has anyone actually approached Bill Barnett to say, can you put together a team and sub under him?
Let me talk to Bill.
And I think that answers your scheduling, because, it's like, if you're here, the next thing you don't wanna go is 10 miles that way to come back 7 miles this way,
Right.
you know.
And pass the guy that was there going back this way.
You know, you would think, okay, Tuesday I'm gonna do Baileyville installations, you know, Wednesday, Thursday I'm doing Callis, you know.
Well, I think they
Friday
do it in
and
order of how they come in.
Right.
That's what they're doing.
But, you know, if you have 3 Callises, fine, do them all that day, you know, and there's one Baileyville who's ahead of one of those 2 people, you wait till you got 2 Baileyvilles and do 2 in a day or 3 in a day.
I mean, I ran my own. They left it outside the house and 'cause COVID, and you gotta keep in mind, COVID had played into this too.
True.
So, but I just got up and said, screw you, I'm gonna run it in myself, and I did it.
So they just showed up and all they.
It's like, there you go, hook that little box up. So,
How many are hooked up in Callis so far, do you know?
Callis is like 230. But Callis is running about 3 to 1. Oh, well, about 2.5 to 1 to us. Which, okay, fine, they have 3,000 people versus, say, 1,400 here. But they're still outperforming us.
well, I think that's why I'd like to see the individual towns somehow promote this a little bit better.
And I think one of the big things, you know, I don't know the demographics, but I can tell you, just by living in this area, I'm gonna say Callis has a younger overall population,
That is part of the
average age.
issue. That is part of the issue.
So I think one of the big things is we talk a lot about the internet side, because we're streaming, so that's all we care about is the internet side. I think for a lot of people in town, they need to hear about the package. What is their, you know, how does their cable compare to Spectrum? Is it
Right.
a package that's similar, or if I switch over and I do the triple play bundle with, you know, Pioneer, am I gonna lose most of what I have with Spectrum? And I think that's a big focus, cause we're not going to get everyone in our town switching over just because of fiber.
No.
They're not going to.
No, and that's the other thing too, is, and the hard part with older folks too is, you know, change is not necessarily their friend. They're used to this, they know if they turn the dang thing on, they're gonna get this, this, and this. They, you know, you give them a new lineup and they spend 2 months trying to figure out what's going on.
Right. But you gotta come up with the selling point.
Right.
And that's where,
The selling point is that their price is significantly better and doesn't change after 6 months, and then after 12 months, and then after 18 months. But then if you call them, they'll knock it down a little bit for you for another 6, you know.
We need some kind of layman's term mailer to go out
right,
that actually shows, you know, the phone number, the price for
the
the.
price, what they're getting, you know. And that's
Channel
why,
lines
you know,
and-
when we put together those cards that we had up there, one, we didn't look at them too close because they didn't put the number on it. You know,
They were the same thing on both sides.
right. You
You
know,
don't
you
want-
can make something like that, because those are very inexpensive. That has like,
On the
this
back side has
table
the-
is gonna be X amount, you know, you're getting these channels.
Yeah.
Because
channel line
what
is
he,
on it.
what he sold us was that his television package basically is the same as Spectrum.
I want, look on the back of it, here's our, you know, normal middle of the line package, here's Spectrum's. Just on the back of it, have a comparison so that they can look and go, oh, geez, I'm gonna lose the,
But I don't think
National
we need to go
Geographic Channel.
through the broadband, the utility district to do this. I'm willing to say, because at the end of the day, the town is the one that's making this payment.
Right.
So I'd rather see us, be ahead of this. And that's why I'd like to see you contact Bill Barnett to see if he can talk to Tim to say, hey, I can put together a crew, or I know how we can, you know, put our minds together to get a crew down here. So,
Yeah, the other thing we're looking at, is that we, at this point, do not have the emergency crew, so to speak. If say, truck took down a couple telephone poles on Route 1 and people started losing service, we do not have that emergency repair, aspect in place yet. Right now, Tim McAfee is still providing that from Pioneer as a service.
right.
but we're still looking for someone who can come in and do that and guarantee that within so many hours they can have everything up and running, so to speak.
Which, I mean, that's, you know, I mean, if it happens here, with Spectrum isn't right here, I mean, it has to go through its chain of, you know, the electric company, the cable company, the phone company, you know, goes right up the line, so I mean, I'm not so worried about that as I am
Yeah, we discussed,
figuring out how to get these customers to actually
we
buy
discussed,
into the service.
yeah, we discussed, if, say, a large line came down, you know, something that's like 12 fibers, not a big deal. They can have you back up within an hour or so. Something with, you know, 260 fibers or 350 fibers, it's probably gonna be, from the time they arrive on site till the time they get everyone spliced back together, it could be as much as 12 hours.
Right.
So, okay. Good. Right away for the industrial park, and if you go to your last page in that handout, that's a task list where I put some of the new information in red. Duty Free has not done anything for us. Typhoon seems very anxious, or not very anxious, but very amenable to dealing with it. One of the things we're looking at is they wanted to know whether we wanted fee simple, or where we pay them for the right of way.
A covenant or,
Right, where in my opinion, let's pay for it. We own it. It's ours. And they can't play a game with it and just allow us to and restrict our activities on it. We buy the land from them for the right of way. It would be shift that right of way 60 feet. Well, about 50 feet over, from where we had intended it going through on
the duty.
duty free. But he seems pretty darn amenable to doing this. He wants more information. He wants, if we do this, he wants the ability to put, when we go through, have cutouts put in so he can possibly put something on site if he chose to do so, like maybe a small forester's building or something of that nature. It looks like he is ready to do business. The piece of land is very small on that side of the swale, but at the same time, he also wants to, you know, having a road that runs right through that property on that eastern portion of that property, I think feels would be a pretty good deal.
All right, now, and that's great. What about the connection onto Route 9?
As far as an opening permit with the state,
Right.
I have not checked on that yet.
Because that is going to be one of your big things that they can deny you. So I don't want to see us enter into an agreement backwards and then have to find the state say, no, you're not going to put an entrance on Route 9.
I'll talk to John Devon about that. The one good thing is we're not that close to the intersection.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
And again, I'll cite this, the trade winds on Route 9. It was a slam dunk that they were gonna have entrance on Route 9 and 46, and they didn't get it. So, I mean, there is, you know, hoops and hurdles, and the state can play funny games.
Yeah.
So, I think if you could look into that, I would agree with this motion. I mean, I don't know, obviously, did he give you kind of an inclination of what he was looking at for money or fees?
Well, he wants to make sure that his legal costs are covered.
Of course. I mean,
And he, I think, would like to probably negotiate what that would be for a fee. So I would have to come back to you guys with further information.
So you basically just want permission to act on behalf of the town to
Correct.
partially negotiate, you know, what possibly this could end up costing the town.
It would, the other thing is, you know, I'd also, further down you can see, have CES come up and survey that. Once this goes, if it looks like it's gonna go, have CES survey that, put the markers in. It would change, I think lot 6, a little bit to lot 6 and lot 8.
Jamie, didn't CES already do this? Matter of fact, I know they did. Because lot 6 and lot 8, there is a right-of-way through there to Route 9. It
Correct.
just blocks up
But it would
against
have to shift a little bit.
I
Yeah.
understand it's gonna have to shift somewhere
Yeah.
to turn in the road, but I just don't wanna see CES come up and charge us $15,000 or $20,000
To do it.
work they've already done,
Right.
and they're good at that.
Oh, they are.
I think Rick might have did that, he didn't share any of that. I
We
kind of overheard it through a council meeting, he wasn't great at
And I
that.
think you're gonna find, if you actually walk that lot, that it's pinned. As far
It's
as
pinned on the,
the map out on
yeah, on the
that.
duty-free side though.
Right, well, I can't happen what happens
Oh, okay.
once you get to the back of duty-free. I mean, and how far they go back, but I mean, if it's a matter of, turning the corner to come out, 60 feet, that really isn't that big of a deal.
Yeah, I think the only thing you'd be looking at with 6 and 8
Yeah,
is just, running that corner a little differently. And then you get CES to run it up the line, to Route 9.
Do we
on-
know
on their
that before we do any of this, that there's no, tadpoles is gonna be extinct or something, so we buy the
That's-
property, then we can't put a road in anyways? 'Cause
That's-
see,
that's
that's
one of the
the
things
one
we have to
thing
look
that
at.
I would suggest that you contact CES regarding that exact issue. In the day, there was a reason why they didn't use Typhoon's land, why they abutted up against duty-free. Predates me. But I was to the understanding that the biggest Achilles heel was gonna be getting an entrance onto Route 9. That was many years ago, so.
All right, let me talk to John.
and
Right,
it was-
right now, I think he's feeling pretty predisposed to the town of Baileyville with what's going on with Main Street.
And what about, does Travis still work for them, for CES?
I believe so.
So, I mean, he would have been your contact person, that did
Travis?
most all, and, so,
All right.
and you must have a card or something on you.
I deal with, Jeff Strang.
Yeah.
All, that, he's like the only one I've dealt with for 20 years, other than bits and pieces.
Right. All right,
Okay, so now you're gonna do a task list review.
yeah, go through the task list, that last page there. Improvements to the town office, I'm looking for a paint contractor and surveillance company. Seacoast is here on Thursday. The other two have not called back. We're also gonna come down on Thursday and look at your setup for a camera too. Also got with the school is looking at, having Seacoast come down. Now, Craig, are you looking at just the camera from them, or you're looking total security system?
No, after the last 76 phone calls and 17 emails I've sent out, I've told them, do not even talk about cameras, that's internal, we're not gonna talk about cameras with anybody else.
Okay.
This is gonna be strictly for security, as in the door contacts and motion sensors.
Okay.
And, yes, but I do definitely want to talk to Seacoast. He's
Yeah.
called me, I didn't bother calling back because I knew he's coming down.
Yeah, he's coming down Thursday, and after we finish with Jamie and here, we'll go down
Yeah,
there.
great, excellent.
Opportunity zone. The Biden administration appears that they are going to keep them in place, but they're looking at, modifying them closer to work like they were originally envisioned. What apparently has happened and why we didn't see people coming out of the woodwork, so to speak, is when the housing boom started, all these places that were designated opportunity zones, which in many cases they were not places of economic hardship, and housing boomed in those areas. A lot of people invested their money in housing, residential housing, so a lot of this money that was intended to go to generate jobs, industrial jobs, has now been put into the market for building houses. and they're trying to steer that away from it and put it back to more what it was originally intended. And, hopefully, we'll see some good news from that, but I'm not feeling really confident on that at this point. Got a letter we sent to the Seavies for a meeting. There are 3 issues. The first is to get rid of the damaged building. Second is the property taxes, and the third is the trailer, the status of the trailer, because that should have been moved a couple months ago. They were supposed to be back in the building, but I want to have a meeting with them so that they can, in fact, sit down with us and we can come up with a plan that can actually work. One of the things I'd like to see them is pay the taxes right off. That would help dramatically. CES, they're going to review the front lot in the industrial park, and then they're also, I was going to ask them to take a look at the right of way. The shift on between lot 6 and lot 8 is minor. I mean, it's just a small, but I'm looking at that portion out along the east side of what Typhoon owns. School board meeting 23rd, 5 p.m. Not 5:30, 5 p.m. All right. BUD for the meter readings, that's gone. The plan for the boiler installation is gone. Town foreclosed properties 2 are out for sale, and I've already got the first bids in for those. But we have others that I want to put up for sale too. Possibly as many as 4. And the attorney's been contacted again regarding the billing, and the BUD is going to be here on the 8th of February to talk to the council. That might be a good night if we can get it, the advertisement in the paper quick enough. Might be a good night to choose their trustee member too.
Now, the security cameras at the town garage, you're using Seacoast.
Right now I'm looking at seeing what Seacoast can do for us. Seacoast is pretty good sized outfit. They're probably the biggest in this end of the state.
I just don't wanna spend a fortune on something like that. 90% of the security cameras you ever see, you see a shadowy figure that you can't ever tell, you can't zoom in on it. Either something good enough that you can see a license plate when it goes by, or you're not accomplishing a lot.
Right.
You know, and if it goes, if that security camera, where's it gonna read out to? You know, if it's going to Bob, then,
Well, it needs to go to at least your computer.
yeah.
And then I'd like to have at least one other place, because if you get someone who goes in and they happen to go bust into your place and grab your computer, then
I will tell you that
Should go to a
because
cloud
it's through
client.
Fielding, but the cameras up there at Tamrose, I'm telling you right now, if somebody pulled in there, you can identify who it is.
Oh, well, if I wanna go and look at this, which I never want to, I can go in and look at the cameras at the school, and the clarity is amazing.
I mean, it really, I mean, you can, somebody over at Key Lock, you can see him pumping fuel.
Yeah.
So there's,
Yeah, the ones at the school are actually good enough. Paul actually turned off the night vision on a couple of them because it actually picked up better just with the ambient light. I mean, you could see.
Well, I thought
just
we
as
had
clear,
issues
it
with
was
the ones at the
crazy.
school, that every time stuff got vandalized, nobody could see who it was anyways down there, so nothing ever got accomplished with,
no, they were in the wrong position.
oh.
And then they had the ones at the library.
Oh, looking over to the
Yeah.
field, yeah. You
Oh,
could-
well, I mean, that camera wasn't even meant to be looking at that field over there. I mounted that one, as a matter of fact.
But
That
wasn't
was-
it
that-
down or something, wasn't it
Yeah,
broke?
it actually went down,
Yeah.
I said it, but that was meant to be looking at our library door.
so February 8th, the BUD will be here, or at least a couple of their members. And the back hat, that's off the list. By the way, code enforcement, he's gonna be gone for the next few weeks. He had his work done last week, and he'll be out for several more weeks recovering, so. Anything that he normally handles, I'll try to do my best to take care of.
Sure.
On the back, Paul talked to me the other day about that, and there was some things that I didn't realize with that. There was some new equipment bought for that, like the Chrome computers and stuff. And I think Paul had talked to her, well, I know he come in clean tons of old crap out that you didn't need in there. But Paul thinks that we should keep it as a crawl line. Did he move the stuff into, so I think he's waiting for us to say whether or not. He said that right across from Ryan, he's got a closet there, that he could move the stuff from Ryan's into there. And in terms of updating anything, it's just, we're gonna have the crawl line anyway. So Paul said, he goes, it's kind of a pain in the butt to try to get a TV channel. He said, so you might as well just keep it. All you're doing is putting the crawl line to it anyway, and you're already doing the crawl line, so it's one of those like, we saved room in Ryan's office by getting rid of all the old crap anyway.
Alright, but why do we need to keep it?
It's just, Paul was thinking, just in case, later on down the line, if we wanted it back, the difficulty in getting it back. Just was one of the things he mentioned.
I really don't see, have you fielded any complaints since we haven't had it?
None. I don't think most people go looking for it now because it's so high up. Supposedly it's coming back down to the top, the first 12,
Yeah, that was like a year and a half ago. It's going
well, I know, and it's still in court. The state of Maine has won it 3 times, and it's, on appeal again by the cable company.
This was one of the things that Paul had mentioned was,
I would say, we're talking, honestly, we're talking on both sides of our mouths here. We're trying to say we want people to swap to Pioneer, and then we're saying we wanna keep whatever
so this is with Spectrum.
Right, this is with Spectrum. So,
It's like just in case your car breaks down.
I know it's
that's-
obvious,
I think
but I
that's
think
pretty
we
apt.
got that equipment, didn't we just go through this with Pioneer a couple of years ago and a year ago, on when we got the new equipment from them? And it was like 2007 or something like that when we got the actual equipment
Oh, from Spectrum?
from Spectrum.
Yeah.
So it's not, obviously it still works, obviously. I would recommend, I'm not saying throw it to the dump, but store it somewhere and roll the dice if we ever have to go back to a local channel, which I don't.
Well, Mike had actually, over the past few months, last few months he was here, Spectrum had actually come down, looked at his equipment and everything else, but was pleasantly surprised that it was, as new as it is. So they're saying, oh yeah, you could fairly easily make the jump over onto the local, if it comes back down, because they're gonna wanna try to make it digital if at all possible. So they appeared to think that we had very little, we were gonna have very little problem gonna be able to adapt to that, whereas apparently most other towns are still, using the old equipment. So,
It's like I told Paul, I understand what he's trying to say, and I get that, but we're trying to get everybody else to switch over to something different. Why are we gonna, try and keep that
Right.
going, I guess? Because realistically, the 3 things that he's talking about is the modulator, which is Spectrum's anyways, which that would be sent back to them, and the Google things, the Chrome things that he's talking about, is just the 2 modems that are in there. Is all he's talking about, because there's no computers. I don't know what Chrome computers you're talking about.
They're not gonna look like computers, right? Chrome computers, they're probably little tiny Chrome bit things that basically will plug into an HDMI, and it's got a whole computer processing and everything built right into it.
He took all that stuff out of there, so the only thing that's left in there is the 2 modulators that are on the wall, or the big modulator, and then the 2 basically modems that are on the wall. Everything else, he basically took out of there, put into a pile and said this is all stuff with garbage. So there's literally only one standing rack in there with 2 or 3 things on it, and then the 2 modems that are on the wall. So, I don't know if that's what you're talking about or whatever, but,
No, it was, he bought, I remember him talking with Mike about doing, basically when we switched the crawl line from whatever archaic design it was before with the blue background and the font that was fuzzy and you could barely ever read it, it's been that way forever. When it was switched over to being able to just do it on Google Slides and put it over, there was 2 Chrome computers bought that they had. And like I said, they're called Chrome bits. It's a whole computer basically put on something as small as a Fire TV stick. And then you just use a Bluetooth controller and keyboard. But
Well, the thing with this, sending it back to Spectrum, we don't have to send anything back to Spectrum. We could put it in a closet, like you said, and we get a fee from them every year based on whoever's with Spectrum, right?
as far as I knew, the only thing that I was told, and I'll call them again and ask, the only thing that I was told I had to go back was their modulator. Other than that, everything else was ours to keep.
Right.
But as far as I know, the modulator was the only thing that they said that needed to go back.
but you're saying if you keep the modulator, you still get the,
But we're still gonna get the fees regardless.
oh, okay.
I mean, those are gonna come in whether we have a crawl channel or not, so. That's why, I mean, for me, if we're gonna cut ties, cut ties. And we're promoting what we went out on a limb here with this Pioneer. And he actually talked to us that if we ever got to the point, he could create a crawl line channel of what he called a local channel for Baileyville, for Callis,
Right.
the same similarity as what you do now,
Mm.
so.
Yeah, I agree, I think we just move on. I think we had the right plan from the get-go.
All right, so where are you now? These letters you want signed?
Yeah, sign, I'll call the other, folks and have them come in and sign too. But one is a letter, that Craig had asked for a while ago for the, thanking the school and school, folks for their work, during COVID. And then the second one is a letter of congratulations to Emily Curtis for 1,000 points.
I think she got that in the first night, huh?
Yeah, good thing.
Be much longer.
In retrospect, that was very good, very lucky.
All right, so are you done with your report?
I'm done.
All right, public comment, Marilyn, Jamie?
I told you last council meeting we had an MMA inspection coming up, I did survive it. One of my stanchions that, excuse me, that holds the sanders had a bend in it, he'd like to have it replaced before we put the sanders back on it. And, he wasn't happy with the fencing that we had, the gates that we had up to the transfer station. The one that's for the actual MSW, it had a bow in it where so many people backed into it because they can't quite get close enough to that trash to dump it. So he wasn't happy with that, so he wanted that fixed. The one for the landfill box has just deteriorated over the years. And the middle one actually didn't have a fence. And he looked at the one and I said, you might as well look at all of them. And so anyway, Johnny Cox is building them. He finished building them and dropped them off tonight. They should be in tomorrow. That was our 2 hits, and he was happy with everything else. He was surprisingly,
He was very happy with Jamie's stuff was looking good, his people were trained, and he's got a good setup.
Is that everything? Ryan?
I only have one thing, when we met last time on the protocols that I need to use as far as using the gym and stuff like that, Mr. Knowles had requested about following what the school does.
Right.
I don't know if you guys know, but the school, obviously you would, school's gotten rid of using temperature checks. Is that something that I need to continue to do, or not, now that they're not doing it, I don't have to? As far as,
My opinion, the only reason that was, Steve mentioned it, because that was the protocol that staff was using. As far as I'm concerned, if we don't need to use it as a staff, you don't need to use it.
okay.
That's my opinion.
I would agree.
And that and the fact that, more than half the cases now seem to be asymptomatic for the most part, so.
Other than that, that's it.
Alright, so we'll move on to councilor closing comments, Craig?
I went down the truck road the other day to go and check my bait traps, and you know, that fence out there looks very nice. It's, you know, with the snow under that, the cemetery fence, that really does shine
The
that
one
place
that's
up.
piled up against the vault, or?
No, not that one. The one that's actually up. That does, you know, I usually don't notice things like that. That's gonna make a big difference when we get that other fence on. It really does. Looks nice. That's it.
Carl? Nothing? And myself, nothing. We do have an executive session, on here, but I really don't think we can do it without, Steve and Acacia, so we're gonna have to table that till the next meeting. Did everyone get their email?